morning, good afternoon, good evening all, it's Bear here. And I'd like to welcome you to my YouTube channel, aboxwithnolid. A channel I've created to not only bring awareness to the day-to-day reality trauma creates, but also to delve into understanding the mechanisms at play and exploring ways of building a better quality of life, and with the hope and goal of healing. And actually healing from trauma, not just managing it, but actually healing. Now, welcome to part 2 of the dissociation, and exploring ways of understanding its impact and exploring ways of healing it. Well, actually, exploring ways of re-regulating it should be more accurate, because, as I said in the first video, with dissociation, it's not something we can really heal. It's a natural mechanism like breathing. We need to get it into the place where it's supposed to be, and getting a more proportionate response from that threat aspect that we have. Now, one of the greatest challenges we have when we're looking at working with dissociation within ourselves or within others, it's the bane of a lot of therapists out there's path or life, is the more embedded dissociation is, the less the person realizes that it exists, that they are doing it, and that it is there. And every attempt to try to engage with bringing the person or bringing yourself into your physical life is a threat. And all those geared and embedded threat responses are going to tell you and make you withdraw even more. So for me, it's when I've worked with my own levels of dissociation, when I've worked with people out there who've asked for my support and help, I approach things more differently. We are a living being living in a living ecology. And all of our base neurological mechanisms play a huge part in everything we are and everything we do. And for me, that's how you work with dissociation. That aspect of ourself that has withdrawn, that separates ourselves from our physical reality, needs to be shown that it can through how our nervous system responds to our physical environment, our emotional environment, to our interactions and our problem-solving capacities and all of this sort of stuff. And that's where the secret lies. We need to look at building a basic routine of teaching our nervous system to cope, of teaching our nervous system that we can problem solve. And the only way we can do that is through physically enacting it. I completely disagree with the belief that if you face your fears, they'll go away, because I can tell you they don't. But taking that analogy into a more realistic context, if you stage your engagement into your life, little steps by little steps by little steps, your nervous system will start to realize that you can. As I've said in previous videos, part of my motivation for doing these videos is for me to, and this channel, is to re-engage. When I crashed with getting Lyme disease, 14 years ago in Canada, and everything from my past that I thought I'd nicely compartmentalized and put away exploded into my physical life, and my body just crashed, which is what dissociation does. Because of circumstance, I never had the resources to address so many different facets of my life. And I was never given the grace to learn how to problem solve because of surviving. That pile built to a point that when I got a bacterial brain infection, everything fell down. And I mean literally everything fell down. And this is one of the motivations for me doing these videos, is to hopefully stop others from having that and the consequences of that. And I have seen it, particularly in the adoption community with adoptees. I've seen this happen far too many times. And I'll get that into that a little bit more with the videos for adoption, where it is safe to do so on such an open format. But getting back on track, basically, how we work with every facet of trauma is we need to relearn to be part of. We need to relearn our engagements. We need to learn how to titrate between threat and safety, how to define our environments in a more productive way, to delineate what is an actual threat and what is a perceived threat. And all of it is going to go around teaching our nervous system better ways of responding, of creating more gray areas. I guess in a very simplistic analogy, and please don't take this out of context, when we go through a whole crap ton of trauma, when we go through a whole lot of stuff, our nervous system almost progresses back down to infancy. And if you look at it, with the way our threat response behaves, it's the same thing as if you give an 18-month-old an ice cream, then you take that ice cream away, it's the end of the world. Well, that's pretty much what our nervous system does when it's gone to that point where we've hit the wall and enough's enough. We cannot do this anymore. And when we're under constant heightened threats, that's literally what our nervous system and threat response does at the littlest of things. In other videos, I want to explore the variations of this, but in the context of dissociation is a way of coping with this. So the only way to bring dissociation into a more balanced place is to teach us that we can cope, that we can problem solve, and we can do. And that's by creating ways to re-engage, in safe ways to re-engage with people in society, with your own home environment. It's one of the reasons why therapy animals are so awesome for people that have gone through trauma, is because an animal innocently requires the attention that teaches your nervous system to re-engage. It's exploring interests that are not a distraction but are a teaching skill. And that's where getting into history or mythology is, sociology, sociology to a degree. But getting into theology, getting into belief systems and cultures and languages and music and all these things that are multifaceted, that require multiple layers of understanding, are excellent tools to start teaching your nervous system the skills to be able to re-engage with your physical world and life. And through that re-engagement, we start to reduce the need to dissociate. And that is how I've approached it, as I said, within myself and within those that I've supported in the past, is by creating ways to re-engage. It's not turning a natural mechanism that we have into our adversary. It's not turning the trauma that created its presence into an adversary. It's teaching our body, our nervous system, ways of problem solving, of coping, of addressing, and then eventually getting to exploring and having more opportunities present through that exploration. And that's the key to working with dissociation. Now, if it has gone down to the point as far as dissociative identity disorder, when you start, doing a bit of research, it's a very fascinating field. But when you start to understand multiple personality disorders and how they're created in the limited understanding that we have, you can find that when you look at epigenetics and you look at inherited family structures, how many people were in the families that they were born from, going back a few generations, you can pretty much see the number of personalities that are associated pretty closely with a core group of people in that family. And that allows pathways of working with this into coalescing into becoming a centralized functional person. And yes, I have, talked with and worked with people with this, and I've had the levels of success that I've had, not because of me, but because of what they've chosen to do. They've chosen to put in the work and all the effort to coalesce all these aspects of themselves into a functional personality that is themselves. They did the work. I just merely helped them through their, what they were saying to understand what this is. And again, that's one of the things around this channel is I'm just trying to give you guys the understanding so that you can develop your own ways of working with this. Because we are all worth healing. We are all worth being part of of living a life we all deserve to live. And unfortunately, many of us have gone through experiences that separate us from those lives and dreams. And as I said, I want to work with ways of teaching you guys, through you teaching yourselves, that you can have those dreams. That you can actually turn those dreams into a physical lived experience. Now, there are so many layers to this that I can't do this in one video, and I will come back to dissociation in many different ways. But for now, be patient with yourselves. And I said the primary area of focus on this is teaching your nervous system to cope, teaching your nervous system to problem solve. And be as creative as you wish in doing that. But it needs to be in areas that are real world engaging. Not computer games, not movies and tech and all of this stuff. You can use technology as a research tool or as a way of exploring and learning, but it needs to be a balance of living experiential stuff and academic knowledge. Use the analogy of it's like doing your times table whilst bouncing a ball off a wall and catching it over and over and over again. It's that thing of engaging different parts of your being, of your nervous system, your muscles, and your brain to teach your nervous system to cope. So as I said, always be safe. I always like your feedback and comments and your questions. And I'll see you next time.